Hello and welcome to Chapter 8 of our Accelerated Broadcast Club curriculum course. In this video, we're talking about the basics of video production software and how to become a great producer. In an upcoming course slash chapter in our book here, the Accelerated Broadcast Club curriculum book, we will talk about mindful video production, what it means to use the right transitions at the right times. But in this video and in this portion of the chapter, we're just going to familiarize yourself with the basics of video production software. What do all these buttons do? What are they used for? And how do we put it all together to create a really great production? So first of all, we talked a little bit about this in a previous video, but it comes down to preparation and countdown, right? When we go live, and we're not waiting for anybody, right? Hopefully our audience is waiting for us. We roll some type of show intro, we introduce ourselves, and then we get to our core content. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. How do we organize our core content? And really, the core content and this whole really production setup is a balance of the technical implementation of your equipment. Like, what do you have available to you? What camera sources do you have? What microphones? What do you have at your disposal? And then your artistic expression, the right brain, the side of your brain that goes, this is the way I want to put this together. This is the way I can have an impact, maybe even draw an emotional, connection with your audience. And that's really the goal. So we'll talk a little bit about show flow and creating everything when we talk about mindful video production. But the first thing I'll tell you is you don't need to get too fancy, okay? You want to try to mimic the professionals, right? You want to do what you see on camera. And I'll tell you 95% of the time, they are cutting between one camera to the next. And that's what makes it seem like the transition happens in a blink of an eye. So the most basic setup would be a USB camera and a USB microphone pulled into your video production software. I'll show you how to do that. And it's very simple, and you could live stream. And this is maybe someone who live streams video games might be more familiar with this. The next little bit more advanced setup would be a more professional camera. So maybe a camcorder with some optical zoom, the ability to zoom in. And this would use a capture card. So we would connect the camcorder to a capture card, which would connect via USB to the live streaming computers. That's a next step up. Now, the basic audio setup would generally be some type of existing audio mixer, which has all of the microphones plugged into it, right? And then the ability, I think my telestrator froze, so we can just cut the telestrator feed. And then the ability to bring that audio mixer into USB into the computer. So with that being said, we have our existing computer. Then we have our existing audio mixer plugged in via XLR. A lot of times we'll talk about cabling and audiovisual basics in the next couple chapters, but we connect the audio into an interface that is going to convert it to USB. All right. So the next slide here is just a little idea of the different video production software and solutions that are available. Generally, going upward is the amount of features that these have, and then going right is the difficulty in order to learn how to use it. So like Facebook has a built-in streaming app. It's incredibly easy to use. It doesn't have all the features that you would expect in some of the other live streaming software. So something to keep in mind, because it will take time, right? There will be a slow beginning, a learning curve that you have to work with. And then eventually, as you're starting to get going, you're learning to ride that bicycle, if you will, and you can start to really start moving fast, and you'll eventually plateau and really start to learn quite a bit. So here's an example of a workflow that is very common, is to have maybe a PTZ camera. Here's two PTZ cameras connected via SDI to capture cards to a live streaming computer, which can actually connect to multiple televisions to give you an idea of a setup. And then these cameras can actually be controlled with a joystick. Having a camera operator is a popular position and role in broadcast clubs, and those cameras can be controlled in a daisy chain setup. So now let's take a look at the OBS software. So at the top, we have the ability to have multiple drop downs, just like any regular program, and you have the ability to configure settings and go into there and change how the program operates. In the bottom area, so the bottom left, we have the scenes area, and this allows you to add a scene, Scenes are essentially collections of media in the sources area there. So each scene can be built with multiple sources, and then you can transition in between multiple scenes. On the left-hand side, we have the preview screen, and on the right-hand side, we have the output screen. So this is in OBS. If you're not seeing this, this is in studio mode, is where you can get that preview and output area. Now, in OBS, we have the ability to hide or show any source at any given time, and we have the ability to transition in between multiple scenes at any time with that transition button in the middle. So let's go ahead and jump into vMix. I want to show you how vMix works really quickly as an example of how it's set up. So let me add a camera, and I'm going to add an NDI camera here. And we're going to go ahead and add this camera right here, which reveals I'm actually in front of a green screen. I'm not in this virtual set, but it's pretty cool. And I think it shows you guys, what it's like to pull in a camera. So there's a camera feed. And now I'm going to add a title. So I'm just going to use one of the built-in titles. This is an easy way to add titles into your system. And I'm just going to put my name here. Paul Richards with the Stream Geeks. And I'm going to click an overlay button, and voila, I now have an overlay on top of my video. Now I want to add one more camera because I want to show you the difference between a preview and an output. So let's go ahead and pull in, let's say this one here. Oh, I don't have the NDIHX driver. So let's pull in the camera that I have right here. So this is a camera on my laptop right here, right? So now I can transition between this camera and this camera. So that gives you an idea. There's different ways to transition. You can fade, you can cut. This just gives you an idea of how a video production software is set up. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how video production softwares are set up. Obviously, there's a record, streaming. We're going to go into a lot more of that in detail in the upcoming videos. In fact, our next chapter is going to go over Google Apps for Education. So we'll talk about more. We're going to start transitioning more into understanding club management and a really great case study from the SAR High School.